Hey, what's up, Shining Otaku? Today we have a special interview. We have a well-researched individual in our midst. He has been involved in content creation since 2008. With the past 10 years or so, he has created a channel that has amassed over 700,000 subscribers. So it's almost heading to 1 million, guys. And another with almost 100,000. Today, we welcome the outstanding Geekdom101. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Definitely, man. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate the kind words. And yeah, you said 2008, which means that you've heard me talk about it before. It's like that joke. It took me 10 years to become an overnight success. I don't think I was an overnight success at all. I wouldn't even call myself a success. But you're right. YouTube was 10 years ago, but I started doing internet stuff in 2008. And the fact that you picked up on that is pretty cool, because a lot of folks forget that, before YouTube, people had podcasts and there were other ways. You know what I'm saying? Technology's advanced a lot.
It's funny you mentioned about like podcasts, because it's like, I think the term, and I could be wrong, I didn't fact check this part, but like, the word podcast, I remember that coming from when people had like the iPods.
iPod.
Yeah. So I'm like, it's funny that podcasting has become like a big thing maybe within the past 5 to 6 years or something like that. But I'm like, I remember when that was well before then.
But I think it was called like internet radio or something like that for a time. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like, I guess what I'm curious about, Danny, from being someone I've actually followed your content for a while.
I appreciate it.
Not all the way back from 2008 though. So
that was different.
Like, what actually started you on the path, like inspired you to want to be like an internet personality or, create content like this?
Well, basically, it was, you trip and fall into it. It wasn't like I had this plan. In 2008, I went to WrestleMania in Orlando and I met some people there that I had recognized from the internet space. And one of them had an online radio show that they were discussing wrestling. And we hit it off. And so he invited me on. And so for a while, I was his co-host. And that was my first time ever doing like anything like, online. But it wasn't my first time doing verbal stuff. See, in 8th grade, in one of my technology classes, one of the exercises we did, I guess, is you run your own radio show. And I absolutely loved that. Like, I loved like being like a radio jockey and introducing music and, it's just, I always thought that'd be a fun career, but I never thought I would actually ever do it. Like I went to college for IT. This wasn't even in the cards, but then I got my own show. It was called Big D and the Super Friends, and later on just the Super Friends, where it was me and my friends. We were talking about like what's going on in pop culture, what's going on in sports. Just a bunch of guys talking, like way before this became common. So I did a live show every Wednesday, and I like to think back to those days because YouTube for me was easy, because a lot of people, they struggle to find their voice. But because I had that training of doing a live radio show every Wednesday, I almost came into YouTube with the experience of already knowing how to, like, I guess, use your voice to keep people, watching or whatever. So I did have that as an advantage, those few years. So that's where the whole thing started.
So when I mentioned, of course, and I may have the name wrong, but you mentioned the podcast being, and I know Super Friends, but I missed the first part. What was the name?
Originally, it was called Big D and the Super Friends.
Big D and the Super Friends.
Yeah, because my old nickname since 7th grade, I was given the name Big D. And no, it has nothing to do with my genitalia. You have my word on that, bro. If it did, it'd be quite average D, bro. If it was on that, but yeah, no, I got called
from like the old Super Friends cartoon that used to be on way
we used
prehistoric
to
time.
use
Yeah,
we
on
used to
Cartoon
use the
Network, the Super Friends with
yeah
the
we
Wonder
used to
Twins and all them.
we used to use this exactly. We used some of the sound effects as like commercial break bumpers and things like that. But what's interesting about that show, and that show lasted about 3.5 years, is I never talked about Dragon Ball. We talked about retro gaming. We talked about shows we loved as kids, like cartoons. Never Dragon Ball. And at that time in 2008, I had already been a Dragon Ball fan for like 12, 13 years. And it's so weird that being a fan of Dragon Ball, well, nowadays, being a fan of anything can quickly, faster than you can even like realize, turn into a career. Anything, basketball, politics, anything can turn into a career, and that these options were not available to us back in the day. The only way to get like a radio show or a TV show is you had to know people, you had to work your way up, you had to get degrees in engineering and like sound engineering and stuff like that. But now with a computer and a webcam and a microphone, anybody can do it, which is a good thing and a bad thing, of course. But these opportunities just weren't there, back in the 90s or whatever.
So I guess what I had to wonder is like of course, you obviously starting off with doing your show with Emperor Big D and the Super Friends. Obviously, just I'm not trying to joke too much about that, but like, were you having that start and then eventually leading into going into Dragon Ball? What actually inspired you to make a channel that talked about Dragon Ball, and not only talked about Dragon Ball but went in depth the way that you actually went in depth, or you have gone in depth with it, where you're actually educating people not just about like the fan aspects of it, but actually kind of giving people the knowledge of what the real inspirations of the story are.
Well, it's funny because this is all linked together. So after the Super Friends show, I built a website called Super Friends Universe. And what I wanted to do is recruit other people to provide content, articles, podcasts, maybe even video casts, which at the time were still relatively new. This is like 2010, 2011, 2013. And what happened was I had a meltdown because one of the guys that was doing content for my site made something that I can't even describe it to you because it wouldn't make sense. But it was something that I just looked at it and said, there's no way anybody would ever read this. And so I decided to find new talent on YouTube. And the idea was, so the same guy that I met in Orlando in 2012 was like, yo, you should do YouTube. I wasn't interested. But I had to I went on YouTube not to make content, but to recruit people to make content for the website. And then what wound up happening was I met someone and they were ethically not in the same boat as me. They were one of these guys that steals news and does not credit the source, which I've always hated because you have to have integrity. And after that, I sat there and I said, I could probably do this my own damn self. And so what happened was, this is in 2015. I got a copy of the Resurrection F trailer, the second trailer, the one that was like the real theatrical trailer. And I was able to get it in super good quality, but it wasn't subtitled yet. So I uploaded it on this channel, which at the time was called The Epitome of Geekdom, The idea was to do Star Wars, Dragon Ball, and Marvel, because this is right around like Age of Ultron and right around The Force Awakens. Like everything was starting to hit, you know, and Dragon Ball was coming back with Resurrection F. And I subtitled the video myself. And shortly after that, I looked at the YouTube landscape, and there were a couple guys that were similar to me as far as doing the in-depth stuff. But, and this, I say this with respect, they were a little maybe too, sometimes their content wasn't too inviting. And, you know, you kind of have to balance everything out. But besides that, the majority of YouTube was a bunch of casual Dragon Ball fans who only saw DBZ on Toonami. They were basically talking over video game footage. Every YouTuber was exactly the same. It was Budokai Tenkaichi footage or Raging Blast or Xenoverse 1, and they're talking over the footage. And I would listen to them, and I'd be like, no disrespect, but I'd be like, these guys are super casual. Like they're missing the point on a lot of things. And you have to understand, my relationship with Dragon Ball goes deep because I'm one of the only people who produces content who saw this show in 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and Japanese. Because I was like, when I was in high school, I was obsessed with collecting Dragon Ball tapes because I wanted to watch. I love this show. I obsessed over this show as a kid. I wanted every episode. Before Crunchyroll, even before Funimation was putting out DVDs, we were trading tapes on the underground that were recorded in Japan. And it became an obsession.
Because he was a military soldier. My dad had the same thing. He was a soldier, so he was overseas. I always got like the bootlegs of anime, Godzilla movies, tokusatsu stuff, Kamen Rider, you know, Super Sentai. So I was like, ah.
And the internet was opening up now. Like now it was getting to the point where we could actually get some of the foreign stuff and watch it online. So I was downloading DBZ episodes and OG Dragon Ball episodes. Like I have behind me a whole spindle filled with low quality Dragon Ball stuff, but it was the only way to watch some of this stuff. So I was obsessing over this series. I was I would say I was pretty knowledgeable about it. There were a few other people at the time that were kind of a similar type of fan to me, which I gravitated towards when I made my YouTube channel. And unfortunately, a lot of them turned out to be, when you meet people, bro, that you see online, sometimes they let you down. And it was one of those situations. But nevertheless, nobody was doing this type of content on YouTube. Nobody was doing like freaking breakdowns and going into the Japanese, because 95% of the YouTubers at the time only saw the series dubbed, really had a very, very like casual surface level understanding of Dragon Ball. And this is not an insult. There's nothing wrong with being this kind of fan. But I decided to say, okay, let's go a bit deeper. And I was not the only one doing it, but I brought a different perspective. And also, I had legitimate inside sources and still do, because I was dropping Resurrection F shit nobody else was dropping at the time. And stuff, and that's continued, of course, you know, as the career went on. So that was like that helped me. That helped me. The training from doing the radio show, the watching DBZ and GT and OG Dragon Ball and obsessing over it in 3 different languages. It's almost like God was setting up my life. Like he was creating this like foundation, and then years go by and I end up fucking doing, I'm sorry for cursing, I end up doing this for a living. And I never thought that was possible. I never thought that was possible. So, and I'm still learning, bro. Like I'm still, we as a fandom, we're learning new things even after the passing of Toriyama, because people behind the scenes are talking now. So more than before. So I don't mean to drag on, but that's pretty much the story.
Oh
And
no, I mean I appreciate what you're saying, because I think one of the things that I like that you're kind of highlighting, even with how you started out and you started building your channel and everything, is just like I appreciate, and I think I talked to you about this before we started recording, um, professionalism that goes into content. Especially when you have some people where they may make YouTube channels. There's no shot at anybody who's doing it, but like there's no real rhythm to how they're doing it. They're just kind of putting it out as a fan. But I can actually see, like, when you're attacking it, you're actually you're thinking through what you're doing. You actually have a process, with how you're doing.
Especially back then. I just wanted to say that what you're talking about.
So
like, people were like that back then.
Yeah, back then especially. But it kind of reminds me of like the content you do, or you see like another YouTuber who I think has really nice content is Totally Not Mark. Some of his content I think is very well thought out and very well edited. So I guess to kind of be a little bit more or to kind of expand on a little bit more your start with YouTube and or just content creation period, with video editing, when you were first starting out, what was your process with that? Because I'm sure there's people out there who may be starting out trying to do YouTube even now. They may want to know, hey, Danny, how do I go about this?
Well, it's a hell of a lot easier now. But again, I want to reiterate what I said earlier, where I said that it feels like God was setting me up for this. And I'll tell you why I say that. In 1998, because I was born 84, so I went to high school from 98 to 2002, which was a great time to be in high school because we had the Attitude Era, we had the beginning of South Park, the early episodes, and we had the anime boom. All of that was going on at once. The PS2 had come out, which is one of the greatest consoles in history. So we ate good. You understand what I'm saying? and everybody in high school loved Dragon Ball. Nobody gave a damn about Goku's voice sounding like a grandma or any of the garbage that I hear from fans now. Like in those days, watching it in any language, they didn't care. They were just in love with like what they were seeing, especially because, it had not come out. But in 9th grade, I took a video productions class and I was editing videos on an actual 2 VHS editing bay. And I edited a Dragon Ball Z music video, which was accompanied by DMX's Rough Riders anthem, which at the time was his first big single. Like that's when DMX first was blowing up. This is like It's Dark and Hell is Hot era.
Wait, so you were doing like AMVs pretty much?
Yeah, but they weren't even called AMVs because I didn't even, bro, I did not have internet access till like 2001. And it wasn't high speed until like 02 or whatever, So yeah, but I did that. I did the DMX video and it was played on the morning show, on the school morning show. So fast forward X number of years, which by the way, what's funny about, I'll tell you a funny story about this. So prior to going to high school, I applied to go to an art school called Blake. And I applied there to go to video productions and writing, and I got declined. I just want to say to all those teachers that thought that I wasn't good enough, I made triple your salary editing videos on YouTube. So, yum. No, but you get what I'm like. I'm kidding. I'm joking around, but like you get what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I get what you're
they
saying.
rejected me from going to their school, and I blew them all out of the water. And you know,
Then now they're probably gonna be repping you and still saying he's an alumni, and you're like, no, I'm not.
Right?
no, I
The
ain't.
branding and everything else.
No, I ain't. And then I found out that school actually had this, like, almost like an affirmative action program where there was only a certain number of white kids, Spanish kids, black kids. I didn't know any of that. And a lot of people, like adults, were telling me this is why you got declined. It was not because you were bad at editing, it was because they already had their Hispanic quota. So, anyways, fast forward to YouTube. When I started YouTube, brother, I was making thumbnails with PicMonkey. When it was free, I was using Windows Movie Maker, which I still use from time to time on one picture videos, which is free. And you want to talk about a microphone? I didn't have this, bro. I had a Rock Band microphone, and I didn't even have a microphone stand. So I took one of those big pill jars like this one, and I stuck the mic in the pill jar. For the first 2 years, I got to 100,000 subs with a mic in the pill jar and Movie Maker. And that should tell you that, yes, you should be as professional as possible. But nowadays, brother, the microphones the microphones on iPhones and the cameras on iPhones are like state of the art. So literally anybody can start. And like we talked about, you want to become more professional as time goes on, but anyone can start. And if you have something to say, that's great. You know what I'm saying? So that's yeah, very bootleg, very like cheap. But I was broke, bro. Like I was an engineer, but like it wasn't like I was buying, expensive. I had bills to pay,
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like, so how, when you're working on a video, how long does it take for you to make your average video? Not like a live stream, but like, I'm gonna say maybe one of your more well thought out videos. Like, but between the research and the editing, how long does that usually take?
It depends. That all depends. Because, like, one of the things that I'm kind of proud of, and I am proud of this as a content creator, is that I don't have writers, and I don't have I don't have writers, and I don't have a research team. I'm the writer, I'm the research team, and you know how Jay-Z says that he doesn't write rhymes, he just comes up with them in his head. I'm not even BSing you. 95% of the videos, including the transformation guides, the in-depths, are literally just me sitting there spitting it off the dome. I was so obsessed with Dragon Ball that I for years, bro. This is most of my life. I just knew stuff, and and the radio training, because you're doing a live show, it would just come out fluidly. Obviously, you make mistakes, you go back, you edit it. I wasn't perfect, but most of the videos on the channel don't even have scripts. It was all in my head. However, some of the more intricate videos, I did write like bullet points, or I did write I'll give you an example of an actual video. The history of Gohan explained, that took me 4 months to like research and to come up with everything. That one was a bit more, you know what I'm saying, than some of the other intricate videos. But it just depends, bro. You got bullet points, you can write word for word, but if you write word for word, you kind of come off robotic, so like it just depends. But yeah, there's been times, bro, where I've sat here and I've recorded 12 videos in a row and I've got the audio done. And so what I'll do is I'll send 3 of them to my editor, because after As you get bigger on YouTube, you might need an editing team to make your workflow faster. I'll send 3 to my other editor, and then I'll work on a few. You know what I mean? And then by the time we're all done, all of it, I got videos right now on my hard drive that are waiting to go up. I haven't uploaded barely this year after Daima because there's nothing to talk about. But I've got evergreen videos that are done, ready to go. I'm just waiting for there to be interest in Dragon Ball again. Then I'll upload it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, for sure. I mean,
it's always good to have a backlog and to have like a vault of content. You know what I'm saying?
So would consistency be one of the biggest keys to content creation, would you say?
For me, it was. For me, it was because I was lucky enough to start my channel right before Dragon Ball Super. Now, Dragon Ball Super, when it started, consumed my life because I literally would have 8 videos a week. I had to wake up at 4 in the morning to get spoilers because Japan is on the other side of the world. I was staying up late talking to other collaborators and just chilling, messing around. I was in a relationship at the time, and YouTube did not help that relationship because like I was so obsessed with getting the YouTube career off the ground. Like what happened was, in like, long story short, in 2015, right when I decided to take it seriously, my goal was to get 15,000 subs by the end of the year, and I got 43,000. And then what happened was right around December, I got fired from my job. And I came home. I was living with a woman at the time. And I told her, I said, I'm going to try this YouTube thing out for 6 months. If I can't make any money on it, if I can't make this into a career, I will go back to IT, because I was doing IT, but I just got tired of it. I got tired of corporate America. I got tired of dealing with, I could tell you stories, bro. We can go 4 hours.
You were like preaching to the choir about stuff. I probably shouldn't say that.
No, I'm sure if you've been in corporate America, you've experienced things. The sleaziness, and I just got so tired of it, bro. And I had to try it, and thankfully it worked out, and I never went back. So there is that. But yeah, anyways, to answer your question, it just depends on the video. It really does. Like and so, okay, I'm sorry, the Super thing. So with Super, the consistency, I was doing reviews, previews, spoilers, covering the leaks and the spoilers. I was doing like, while that was going on, evergreen videos. I was doing explain videos better than anybody. And that's not ego, that's a fact. Like, nobody on YouTube has explained videos better than me. I'll never forget the week that Ultra Instinct came out. I watched every content creator's Ultra Instinct explain video. And I'm like this, bro. I'm like, Jesus, dude. And so that's why if you watch everyone's UI explain video and then you watch mine, I actually explained how Goku cracked his limits to get to Ultra Instinct. Nobody else, he absorbed the spirit bomb. No, he didn't. That is not what happened. Because I understand this series, bro. Like,
no, I'm literally, it's funny when you're talking about this stuff. Like, I'm thinking back to then, and I'm like, I remember hearing about a lot of this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, that sounds so similar to, what was it, the Android 13 movie, like him pulling in the energy.
Yeah, absorbing the spirit bomb. And
yes, I'm thinking that concept, but there's so much stuff.
That he did to Broly, the same thing.
If I'm gonna, usually, on this show, I usually try to always talk from just like the professional perspective of everything. But if I'm gonna talk just for a brief moment, like to my audience, like, from a fan side, because I am a fan of Dragon Ball.
Hell yeah.
I think when I like from watching your channel, like paying attention to it, I feel like it definitely cleared up things that I used to think about Dragon Ball coming up, because you talk amongst people, obviously, being a Toonami kid, you always have that kid that tells you about something that's going to happen later on in Dragon Ball before it gets there. And then, somebody always knows. It's all these rumors flying around.
Oh,
So,
I remember.
yeah, so it's like I had so many misconceptions about what certain things were in the story because I didn't know their origin point, or the dub changed certain things, or
The dub butchered that series, brother. I'm getting heat from these these weirdos that can't handle the fact that I'm literally showing people examples of how bad that dub was. A lot of people romanticize the English dub because I grew up with it. That's all I ever hear is I grew up with it. And that's fine. No one's trying to ruin your memory, but that dub was completely butchered. And I've shown footage on my Twitter recently of the English dub with Japanese subtitles, and you see what they're saying does not match the subtitles at all. They change characters
Like it never did. Back then, it
the
never
dub
did.
bro, the dub has led to a lot of people being misguided. And I was lucky enough too that I grew up watching Bruce Lee movies and like a lot of wuxia, like Asian cinema. So
Right.
I understood the culture. I think people watched Dragon Ball Z on Toonami and thought that Goku was Superman and that it was like a superhero show. And I understand that because there is an aspect of it there, but that's not what Dragon Ball is. And I think it led to a lot of people, not understanding. But I'm sorry, you were telling a story and I jumped in.
Oh no, I'm just saying Dragon Ball has a lot of Mandela effect, a whole a whole lot of stuff like that. So I mean, I think that one thing that's been good about your channel is I think that you've done a really good job clearing up a lot of stuff. Now, really quick, I know we're at the halfway point of this show. I do have to plug another show really quick. Just really briefly. The Honeycomb Hideout, for those of you guys who are not familiar, it is a show that's basically about nerd culture, talking about deep topics, relating to even controversial topics in the nerd community. Think of Howard Stern for geeks. It is our sister podcast held by Joe Kane and Christine Kitchens. You guys want to make sure you check this show out. Definitely a show to watch and to follow. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on pretty much all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, you name it. But in any case, we're going to come back to the interview with Danny from Geekdom101. Just wanted to make sure I plug that really quick. Now that we're back to this, what I want to know is, obviously you do other content outside of Dragon Ball. So like you do, like, for example, the stuff on World of Geekdom, where you've done a lot of different reviews. Now,
yeah.
How have you built your skills relating to even like reviewing, for example? Because that's something that a lot of people don't know is an actual skill. You have to have an understanding of like storytelling. You have to have an understanding of, how writing works and, that sort of thing. I don't know if did you go to school specifically like for that, or, is this just something you've kind of maybe you write on your own? Like, I'm just curious as far as like, how do you tackle reviewing as a content creator?
Well, I tackle it a little bit different because one of the things I've noticed about YouTube specifically is you've got the fanboy reviewer, and then you've got like the professional auteur reviewer, and then you've got the reviewer that can't unplug their political bias out of their head. And all three of those archetypes are incredibly annoying, and I eliminate that from my reviews. I think one of the things that I'm proud of, my reviews are not really edited. It's just me talking over a picture. It's more like a podcast. The content on World of Geekdom is mostly like that. But when it comes to reviewing, right, whether it be a movie or a TV show or a game or whatever. Like I try to tell the audience to kind of like, I tell you, if you're a fan of this, you'll like this, because everyone has their own opinion. So like, if you love, I'll give you an example. If you love Dragon Ball, you're probably going to love Shang-Chi, the MCU movie. Like, you know, that's an example right there. So I try to think about the consumer's money, you know, because if they're going to spend money on a movie or on a TV show, well, a TV show could be more time investment than money. You know, I try to make it so that they, without spoiling it, they kind of know what they're getting into, you know, like, and that's the important thing, I think. And I don't know where I got that from. I have no idea. Maybe, well, here's the thing. I used to write, okay, so there is one chapter we didn't talk about. Prior to 2008, from 2002 to about 2012, I used to write hip hop reviews on a website called Opinions. This was many years ago. And that
We're getting an exclusive right now, ladies and gentlemen. Never heard this.
I've talked about it very rarely, bro, but yeah, I very rarely. So I would do hip hop reviews because at the time the internet made it really easy to download albums. Sorry, but we all did it. I didn't use LimeWire. I used Kazaa, and I used one called Alta Vista because that one had entire albums. So I was downloading Wu-Tang and like everything. And so that was my first experience doing reviews, and I learned from some of those people. So I guess that answers your question, right? I don't like doing the whole like woke, anti-woke. I can't stand that YouTube's become that. And I also don't like to like, you know, totally like crap on something, because I truly believe that nobody tries to make a bad product, but sometimes it shocks me that things are so bad and that somebody didn't step in and say, hold on. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen a movie? Have you ever seen a movie where you walk out of the theater and you say, how the hell did an executive at Disney approve this? How did somebody watch this movie and go, you know what? Let's do it. It's so weird.
You know what's interesting? So like when I try to look at a story, right? Because there's like a couple different ways you can look at a story, right? I can look at the story from like a purely writing standpoint, like, hey, did it hit the points that it needed to hit? I can look at it as a fan and be like, okay, did I enjoy this movie? Which is completely different, you know, because something could be well told and I still may not necessarily enjoy it, you know, because maybe it's something I didn't like, you know.
And there's also the opposite. When it comes to the Dragon Ball like dub thing, I tell people, I'm like, listen, I am not trying to ruin your nostalgia. Love the dub if you want to, because it reminds you of being a kid watching anime for the first time. When I grew up, bro, I grew up liking a lot of bad movies. We're all like that, bro. Like, there's stuff that you can look at and say, okay, this is bad, but I still like it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, you know?
You know what's funny? I actually just recently put on, because my nephew, he likes Dragon Ball, but he hasn't seen all of Dragon Ball, you know? So he's only, like, he's looked at a lot of the super stuff, but like a lot of older stuff, like the Broly movie, he hadn't seen. He hadn't seen the original Broly movie.
Okay.
So literally just a few weeks ago, I sat down and showed it to him. I know I'm going to get some flack for this. I like the original Broly movie, but I do not think that the original Broly movie is all that well written. You know, granted, he enjoyed it, but I think that it has a lot of problems. You know, and I mean, I know people probably get me about that. I do enjoy it. Let me make sure I say that, and I think that the concept was there. But I think you can have the concept for something.
Here come the angry comments.
Yeah, no, I love Broly. Let me make sure I say that. I do love Broly. He's one of my favorite, the original one.
But the thing is, those Dragon Ball Z movies, the vast majority of them were never like all that well written either. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
a DBZ movie is a 45-minute to an hour side story.
Pretty
where
much,
you,
yeah.
and you just enjoy it, and
Sometimes
you enjoy
Toriyama didn't even have to say so in the matter. They kind of just did it for like financing.
Well, he was involved in like designing, like he designed Cooler, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he didn't write them. Takao Koyama did. But the point is that they're just little like, side stories that you enjoy for fun. It wasn't until Battle of Gods that we actually got a movie
Start getting canon movies. The movies that were
well,
canon and progressed.
well, the canon, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But I don't mean like as far as like the canon goes. I mean more so like it feels more like a movie with like the bobbing and weaving. We got a little bit of that with the Hirudegarn movie. Because if you remember the Hirudegarn movie, you had the Tapion flute with this brother. There was
Dragon,
layers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a story. Like that felt like a story.
I
You know
don't
what
mean
I'm
to
saying?
make a joke about this or laugh about this, but I don't know when Darius just mentioned like the canon, and I know you've talked about the canon on your
Oh,
channel
that's a
a lot.
whole.
I don't know why there
yeah.
just needs to be almost like a short film or movie or something just called the canon. It has like a dark overcast. It's just talking about Dragon Ball and the canon.
When Dragon Ball Super's manga returns, whenever that is, I will give you the canon video because this is the only video that I've re-recorded about 7 times. I am going to give you the definitive canon video that's going to go into everything. I got statements from Toriyama, from Torishima, like exactly like how this works, and you'll be surprised, bro. I'm just going to tell you this. 99% of the fandom do not understand canon because they think that canon is something that the Asians care about, and they don't. Toei, Toriyama, Shueisha don't give a damn about canon. The word canon comes from canonical, which is how we figured out what books of the Bible were inspired by God and which weren't. So you have the canon books and you have the non-canon books. People have applied those to like anime and manga and Dragon Ball, but it doesn't apply because these stories were not written to fit into a specific canon, or were they? Some of them were. The problem is that it gets complicated when you've got a manga, anime, movies, then you've got video games, then you've got new stuff like Super and Daima, manga, anime, and so people are, you know what I'm saying, right? Like there's so much.
Dragon Ball fans should probably look at. I'm gonna say Dragon Ball similar to how maybe you could look at like Marvel's What If when they have that.
Yeah,
like I'll be like, you know what? Treat that like it's another universe.
It's
like,
not that hard, brother.
And I feel like
it's
when people have taken the statement that what Toyotaro recently said about everything being canon or whatever, or not even canon, but like everything kind of existing in Dragon Ball,
which is impossible, by the way, what he said.
Yeah, I think if I were to even like try to like make sense of that, maybe he means it in that sense, like with What If or something like that. Like, hey, that story exists in that story.
The Japanese don't care about canon as much as the Westerners do, bro. They legitimately don't care, bro. Like that's why you've got like video games that have whacked out timelines, like Zelda and Mario and Metroid. How like you can fit it together, but like everybody wants to debate what goes where. I'm just saying, bro, they do not care. And I'm not saying this to like, oh, you're trying to cape the series and it's bad writing. No, I will call out the bad writing. It's just that you can't look at it with the eyes. You cannot look at Dragon Ball with the eyes of a Westerner. And I'm really trying to hammer this point home to people. You have to look at it from the eyes of the target audience, which is the Japanese. I'm not saying you have to be a weeb, but you have to understand it's not made for you. And when you understand that, I think it's a lot easier to understand like the series. You know what I'm
I
saying?
like when you said that because from some of the people that we've talked to who work in Japan, who are manga creators. Like we even just talked a couple weeks ago with Juan Albaran. So he did a complete like manga series. He's from Spain, but he worked at I can't even think of it right now, but at Kodansha. So he did a manga publication with a Japanese creator through Kodansha. And they went for about 10 volumes. So he talked a little bit about his experience with, working with an editor and how involved editors are in their process. And I think something that I feel like you've highlighted too on your channel is just like some of the things that people know for Dragon Ball aren't just Toriyama, but his editor was so much involved in that process. It doesn't.
And yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
You're right. And then when you get into Super, that's when things get complicated because he was mentioning the Battle of Gods canon, right? That right there. Let's take that out for just a moment. Battle of Gods was written by Yusuke Watanabe, and then Toriyama went in and made edits. There's 3 different Battle of Gods, bro. You've got Battle of Gods, the movie, the manga, and the anime. People are debating which one is canon. So when you've got the same story being told 3 times, what do you do with that? There's people that think that the Toei version is the definitive canon. I'm telling you right now, Toriyama did not supervise a single one of those changes. So that's a mistake. The manga was done by Toyotaro. Can you really call that canon? The movie, Toriyama actually worked on it. So you say, okay, then the movie is the definitive Battle of Gods. But other people don't see it like that. And like you pointed out, you've got editors. I'm just going to say this. There is not a single episode of Dragon Ball Z, GT, Super, or Daima that Toriyama's the writer. Not a single one. Look it up, bro. I'll send you 18 grand. Not a single one.
Somebody's going to lose their mind.
Well, you're not going to find it because Toriyama doesn't write anime. What he did do for Super is write manuscripts. Now, here's the issue. The manuscripts can be considered canon, right? That's fair. We don't have them. Only Toyotaro and Toei have them. So I don't know if they're ever going to publish them, but I think for Super, that's the definitive canon, but we don't have that. Because don't forget, Toei added Kale. That wasn't in Toriyama's original script. He changed Jiren and Toppo. They added Vegito Blue to the Trunks arc. So if you're working with something, right, and then Toei or Toyotaro add something to change it, does that make it less canon? That's what I'm saying. These conversations, I think people should have these conversations. The problem is that people, I don't think they really understand that at the end of the day, my favorite phrase is there is no canon. And here's why I say that. They've never officially announced what the canon is. However,
mere speculation of the public.
Yeah. However, there is a way to determine canon, but you have to kind of look at the series differently. And I'm not going to go into that here. I'm going to save it for the video, but trust me, like, I'm not going to BS you. Like, it gets complicated when you have a manga, an anime, movies. You've got a remake sometimes. You've got Daima, which took stuff from GT, but happens before GT in the timeline. But GT can't fit with Daima or Super. You know what I'm saying? Like, and people will say, well, GT's not canon. Okay, fair. But GT is the official sequel to Dragon Ball Z. That's what Toei called it. and
My
Toriyama
follow
called it
question was, what do you think about GT? And you pretty much just answered it. So there you go.
Well, no, I didn't answer it because I did talk about the canonicity of it, but you asked me what do I think about it. That's different. I think GT, I actually don't hate GT. GT had a lot of good ideas and a few bad ones. There are issues in GT, bro. There's a lot of problems in GT, but I don't hate it as much as other people do. I just don't. So that's kind of what I really think about GT. There are a few great moments, but the issue is it's following up Dragon Ball Z. And by that point, bro, like the juice has already been drained from the fruit, you know? And that's why GT is so derivative. Like we see a repeat of things. Gogeta Super Saiyan 4 is basically a redo of Vegito, like Super Saiyan, like against Boo. The baby arc is creative, but it's basically just a combination of like the Cell Saga and the Saiyan Saga. And you got Super Saiyan 4, which can kind of be like Super Saiyan 1. So like they take parts of, and then Goku wins at the end with a Genki Dama with a Spirit Bomb. Like, you know, they take the Dragon Ball Z formula and try to like redo it. And that, I think, is what hurt GT ultimately. Plus, we have records, bro. People were burnt out on Dragon Ball in the 90s, and that's why it didn't do well. Dragon Ball needed a break, and they got one. So, but yeah, bottom line, I don't hate GT. I don't love it either, though. So,
it's a complicated mix of emotions.
And if you've seen it dubbed, God bless you, because that's one of the worst hack jobs. I didn't know that Goku was Captain Planet, brother. He's talking to freaking Omega Shenron, and in the subtitles,
he's a hero.
Yeah, in the subtitles, he's saying like, you know, you'll never defeat me, you know, or I'm gonna defeat you. Meanwhile, in the dub, he's like, you know, Omega Shenron, you have a lot of power, and if only you used it for good. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting here like, you know, the plants, they deserve to live. And I'm like, what is going on, bro? Dragon Ball GT episode 1. Dende goes, grab a medikit. That's in the dub.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Dende want a medikit if he knows how to heal, you dumb motherfuckers? That's what happens when you fuck with the script, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You lead to people. You know what I mean, right?
Or even, you know what's funny? Like, even with that, I guess it would have made sense if for whatever reason, if you suspended your disbelief, okay, he doesn't have, why couldn't he just say go down the corn and get a sensu bean real fast? You know? Like, I mean,
that's
even
true.
Like, even if for whatever reason Dende forgot how to heal, or he's like, I don't feel like healing you, go grab a sensu bean, you know?
Right, but that line is not in the Japanese. It's something they added. Every time they add something in the dub that isn't there, it ends up creating a problem. And that happens a lot.
Like, one day we gotta talk about the complete train wreck that is Ghost Stories.
Ghost Stories.
Wait, Ghost Stories. What's Ghost Stories? Is that a TV
Ghost
show?
Stories is an anime they basically bought, and the directors that are in charge with the dub basically told them to have fun with it. It's all over the place.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they were basically literally having fun with it. They were saying everything about everything while solving mysteries.
Yeah, but there have been some that have changed stuff for localization.
Some of those can actually be funny and entertaining. The issue with Dragon Ball is that they completely changed everything, and that's led to a lot of fan confusion. And yeah, but anyways, enough about that. What were we talking about? I don't even remember.
Actually, so now, you know, we're kind of getting ready to wind down a bit, but I wanted to know, so obviously you've done content creation for a while now, but a lot of people who are content creators, they may also be, you know, people who may be aspiring, like creators of maybe they want to make their own film, or they might want to make write their own book or something like that. Is that you?
I thought about it. I actually wanted to write a book about Dragon Ball. Just like go into some of the things, like, I've thought about those things. Don't know if I'm going to, but I've thought about it for sure. I don't have any aspirations though to be a movie star. Like, I just don't. Would I like to make a movie? I would, but it's probably never happening. I came up with this idea for a film called Babysitter Ninja. Don't steal this idea, by the way. I'll sue your ass. So it's basically like one. It's
talking to a group of writers.
It's like a comedy. It's basically like those old 80s Steven Seagal, Chuck Norris movies where they hire, because it's stupid, but it's supposed to be stupid. This family hires a babysitter, and then these drug dealers kidnap the baby. And then we find out that the babysitter used to be a ninja assassin. And the rest of the movie is the babysitter just killing all the drug cartels. It's one of those like dumb 80s like Arnold movies, but I always wanted to make something like
a couple of them, a couple of kids movies where this super secret agent, I think The Rock played one of them, and I think Van Diesel played one of them, where there was like this super agent that played undercover babysitters or nannies or some shit like that.
Probably. They've done stuff like that before. For mine, though, it would be over the top because he's a ninja. He's got ninja stars. He's got tear gas. Like, because, bro, what's cooler than a ninja? Almost nothing, bro. Let's be honest. Ninjas are amazing.
So we talk like a rated R situation, the gore. Like, I don't know if you've seen that movie Ninja Assassin recently, when you just
oh yeah, I love Ninja Assassin.
Like, yeah, kind of like that basically in a sense.
Yeah, like American Ninja. Yeah, that's like an idea I had for a movie that would just be fun, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, but I don't know if I'm ever gonna do that, bro. Like, I honestly, and I love Dragon Ball, and I actually still love Dragon Ball, even to this day. Obviously, the old stuff I like more. No disrespect to Super or Daima, bro, but peak Toriyama was like late 80s, early 90s. And the OG Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z era stuff just blows a lot of this out of the water. It wasn't just Toriyama. There's other guys involved too. But I don't know, man. That show and that manga made me feel things. And growing up, I actually like it more now than I did when I was a kid. So I can make Dragon Ball videos for the rest of my life. I won't, but I mean, I could. It just depends on what they're going to do.
Okay, so now before we wrap up here, I know I've talked a whole bunch, so I want to say,
I'm down.
I was going to say, like, Darius, I don't know if you had something you wanted to ask, because I feel like I've asked a lot, so I obviously don't want to take it all up. This is your first time on here.
I answer questions long, bro. I apologize for that.
Oh no, don't apologize. We've been enjoying it.
I'm the kind of guy where if you ask me what time it is, I'll show you how to make a watch. You know what I'm saying?
The only question that I have on the table right now is what made you start getting into wrestling content? Because I watched a few of your videos to get like a case study and everything else, and a lot of the advertisement was I do wrestling content, blah blah blah. So I was like, what made you throw that into the table?
Oh wow. I'm glad you didn't ask me what was canon, bro. No, but no, I've been a fan of wrestling since I was 5.
Wait a minute, because I'm not a wrestling person. I do have to ask this. I'm actually asking both of you guys. Does wrestling have a canon? Because I don't follow wrestling, so I'm actually.
Oh my!
Does it?
Okay.
No, it's a series of linear storylines. It's basically Gintama. It just has like a series of everything pointing in every direction.
That's a weird question though, because like, okay, everybody knows that wrestling is a work, right? So asking if, but it's still a sport. So asking if wrestling has a canon is kind of like asking if NBA has a canon. Like, yes, that's a difficult. But the thing about wrestling, that's a really, I don't think you can apply the word canon to wrestling because, like, I don't know how to explain this, but wrestling is really weird because
Like
you
someone
have
being like the Attitude Era, that's not canon. You know,
Basically,
that
we're
was
at the
filler.
time span where their children are involved in this now. Everyone that you possibly can think of has a kid in here.
There's truth to that, yeah. But I mean, I've never heard a wrestling fan ever refer to canon for wrestling. And I wish Dragon Ball fans were like that, but I don't know how to answer that question, bro,
It's kind
because
of hard, really, because they would throw a storyline at you between two people, and then they will continue it for like a couple of matches, and then it will end, and then that storyline will break off into another thing. Like those wrestlers that were a part of that storyline would somehow get connected to these other people now, and then that storyline continues to that storyline, and then this becomes this whole big thing. And just when you think it's done, no, there's a tag team match involved with those two storylines, and then another element is introduced to this storyline, and blah blah blah, and then a faction is formed out of all that.
Okay, yeah, I think I get it. Okay, you know,
Sorry,
I didn't mean to detract from. I just was curious. I was like, is there a canon?
Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. That's why I feel his pain when he said it's really hard to label the canon with or storyline with wrestling because it's just so much to just flipping someone over on a table. Basically, it's just.
I don't think you can use the word, man, because. Like, and you're right, everything you said I agree with, like, about the storylines, but like there's more to it than that because you've also got situations where something real will happen and they'll tie it into the
wrestling. Like Jeff Hardy is the prime situation on that one.
Which Jeff Hardy specifically are you talking about? Like, what story?
Basically, his background, we already know he has like DUIs and drug abuse.
The drug shit, right?
Like, and everything else in between. They threw that in with Sheamus during the era of COVID when, you know, they were really just kind of like throwing stuff together and all this other extra stuff. And it was just like, for me, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'll give you an example because I actually forgot all about that. But I'll give you an example of something going on right now. Okay. Right. So there's a wrestler named Cody Rhodes, and he's the son of Dusty Rhodes, who's a legendary wrestler from the 70s and 80s. Well, Cody, a few years ago, and this is so difficult to explain to a non-fan, okay? Because wrestling has this really weird, almost alternate reality where things that it's all scripted, right? It's all predetermined, but stuff that's real oftentimes gets put in there. So, so Cody was unhappy at the character that they wrote this character named Stardust for him, and he hated it.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I read up on this.
Yeah. And so what happened was he quits WWE, like volunteer, and this really happened. This really happened. He quits WWE. He wrestles around the world, starts a new wrestling company named AEW, and eventually comes back to WWE. And now he's the champion because it's like the prodigal son story in the Bible. He left home, became a man, and came back.
Yeah. But basically the Lion King story in real life.
Yeah. But here's the thing. That is what really happened, but it became part of the storyline. Mm-hmm. It's so difficult to explain, dude.
Yeah, no, I think I follow. It's like it's meta. It's very meta, you know.
Yeah, it is very meta, especially now with the internet.
I do feel bad for those who really do get like their drama thrown into it. Like Paige is one of those. I mean, Soraya, her name is now. Is one of those I really feel bad for because we all know why. I'm not going to say on the camera, but
you talk about the leaked tape.
It was like, yeah, we all know why, but you know, every wrestler that she goes up against, especially Mercedes Moné, be throwing that jab just left and right, and I'd be like, damn, why you gotta remind us of this?
Xavier Woods, bro. All I'm gonna say is
Yo, I'm
Xavier
reminded
Woods.
of that every time I see him. I'm sorry, I just can't erase it from my head ever.
And don't forget, he did the Terminator pose in the video. We can't talk about that on here, bro. But
Yeah, we can't, but it's a lot.
it's
It's a lot.
it's
A lot of drama that shouldn't be monetized for live television is with wrestling.
right. But to answer the original question, I got into wrestling when I was 5, and I watched it pretty much my whole life. Just like Dragon Ball, I was collecting tapes, trying to see as much wrestling as I could, going to shows. I decided to add wrestling to the channel. First, I would just do pay-per-views, but now I do commentaries because people seem to like them. I have a different perspective because, like Dragon Ball, I feel like wrestling is one of my strengths. Like, I'm very well versed in wrestling. Now, I watch NBA, NFL, even a little hockey. I will tell you straight up, man, like I am nowhere near being like an expert on those sports. Like, I'm just not. For wrestling, though, I was so, just like with Dragon Ball, I was so obsessive with it that I would download interviews. I would read books. I got a bunch of wrestling books back there, like of the story of, because wrestling attracts a very weird kind of person to be a wrestler. You got to have something
There's got to
wrong with
be a
you.
link between wrestling and Dragon Ball, and the only reason why
There
I say
is.
because
There is.
when I was coming up, I had a friend. I'm gonna just shout him out because he was one of my best friends growing up, Edmund. He literally, me and him. I mean, I didn't really keep up with wrestling, but he was like a super Dragon Ball fan, just like me. But he was also a big wrestling fan. That's the only thing I didn't get. But he liked both of them, a lot.
Wait, so when you saw wrestling, were you just like, this ain't for me?
I tried it, and a lot of people I knew who liked Dragon Ball, they liked wrestling too.
It's very similar.
I feel like my older sister, it's funny, like she's super into wrestling. And at one point, I got her a little bit into Dragon Ball. She's not into Dragon Ball really like that now, but she's still really into wrestling. So it's like kind of one of those things where I kind of say like she got that. I took away just the Dragon Ball, the anime.
They follow the same category storyline. Basically, you have the good guy, and then you have the bad guy who defeats him for a good short period of time. This is like his training arc. Blah blah blah. He's wrestling other people. And now he's coming back to this dude. Oh, I finally got my victory. I reached another level of ascension. Now I beat you. It's basically the same shit. I mean, same stuff.
I'll recommend this to you. If you can find a documentary from 1997 that was done by A&E called The Unreal Story of Professional Wrestling. It's a 2-hour documentary, and it goes into like the beginning of wrestling, because wrestling used to be real. Like in the 1800s, Abraham Lincoln was a wrestler. Like they wrestled in the Roman Coliseum, like the real one. Like, amateur wrestling. Like now it's called amateur wrestling, even though professional wrestling is a work. Amateur wrestling is real. But anyways, and that documentary will take you through like how wrestling went from being a carnival attraction to figuring out that if they faked it, they could actually make more money. And the fact that the wrestling business hid the fact that it was fake for decades and decades and decades. And in that documentary, as you pointed out, it talked about that the secret behind wrestling is not fighting over a championship belt. It is good versus evil. It really is. And all the great stories are good versus evil. You've got good people who try to do the right thing. They're a little edgy, but then you've got bad people who commit crimes, and yeah. So yeah, it's good versus evil. It really is that simple. Sometimes though, it can be hard to keep track of because the good guys become the bad guys and the bad guys become the good guys. They call them turns. to kind of freshen up the storylines. So I don't know if any of this is making sense to you.
Oh, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. So this is the last question. This is our traditional final question we ask everyone. Okay, so at the end, when you become old, when you look back on your career, what is your end game? What do you want, to look back on? What do you see your career going as? What is your aspirations for the end of your day?
I don't know. I guess. I mean, this is gonna sound like really basic. I don't care that much about legacy. The reason as to why I don't care that much about legacy for me is because people are going to formulate opinions about you, both good and bad. And most of the time, the opinion's going to be wrong because they don't know you. That goes for all of us. Like, you can't know everything about us based on a few videos and a few live streams and a few tweets and posts. You just can't. Like, you don't know what that person's really going through. You don't know what the strengths and weaknesses are. So having like this big, like, oh, I want to be remembered for this. I just want to retire peacefully. My idea of happiness is peace. I want to be left the hell alone. I just want to retire and live my last few years enjoying life and traveling. And it's a very basic like thing. One of the things I'm really into, right, is investing. So I was thinking about starting an investing channel, not going by Geekdom, going by Danny. Like, it would not be linked to Geekdom at
Investments.
all. Yeah, Geekdom money. No, nothing Geekdom. And the idea would be like helping people. Investdom 102. The idea would be to get people to like learn about investing and show them what I've done, not to gloat, but to show them this can be you. This is possible. Because people, I think, they always will say, oh, I don't have enough money. I'm scared of the stock market. I'm worried about going broke. All of that is logical. I get it, but it's really not. I don't think it's that hard, and I'm very passionate about it. So the idea is I want to retire with enough money to not have to ever work again unless I want to. So if I want to do a podcast, or if I want to do a show, or if I want to do a stream for me, for fun, cool, let's do it. But I don't want to have to do something. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you real quick before we close out. In 2009, I was homeless. I've told this story a little bit before, but I went homeless in 2009. Long story. I'm not going to go into details, but I lost everything. And I had to rebuild myself. My credit was like bad. Like, it was just not a good time. I lost my job. Like, it was not good. And since then, I was going to write a book called From Homeless to Homeowner, because 10 years later, I was homeless in 2009. In 2019, I paid off my house and went debt free. I do not pay mortgage for this house. This house is paid. And I think a lot of people should aspire for that, because when you pay off your house, bro, there's a feeling of like freedom where you're like, and I want to tell you,
personal as this gonna get from me. Did you cry?
No, I don't. No, not really. Those things don't make me cry. Maybe if I wrote it, no, not really. I was happy, but I really, okay. So like, when I was homeless, right, I found out later that I actually developed post-traumatic stress disorder. So I've been diagnosed with PTSD for being homeless. Now, here's the thing. When YouTube first started for me, and I mentioned this earlier about how I was obsessing over the channel and didn't pay attention to my relationship at the time. And so the channel, my desire to grow the channel took away from my relationship at the time. The reason for that is because like I noticed a lot of other YouTubers that would dick around all the time and not work. And I was always grinding because the PTSD made me in my head want to outwork everybody because I never wanted to go back to that. Like when you're homeless, bro, you never want to go back to it. So like it was almost like being homeless made me work harder. It's not healthy, but for a long time, that's what motivated me. And it's just been in the past 2 or 3 years where I've finally been able to kind of put that away and say, okay, like this happened to you. The likelihood of it happening ever again is very, very, very slim because they can't take this house away from me. Not with the rules of Florida. They can't take your house in Florida, bro, especially if you paid it all off. So, you know what I'm saying? Like that was a big motivator for me. So bottom line, after this drawn out response, I just want to retire and be able to travel and give. I want to be able to give as well in my last few years. So that's pretty much it, man.
I love that response. I'm not even gonna lie. It sounds very humble. You know?
No, man, I don't want to be a movie star. It's just not my thing.
Very humble. You know, I'm like, anybody who try to jump on Danny, I'll be like, don't jump on Danny. You know, people always trying to do that. I'm like, leave Danny alone.
No, brother. What makes me laugh is this idea that people have, and I will address this. Oh, Geekdom has a big ego. I really don't. I just, when it comes to Dragon Ball and like stuff that I'm really like passionate about, I talk very curt and very like to the point, right? Like I don't sugarcoat shit. And I think there's too many YouTubers who they kiss up to their audience and it's all fake. They just want your money. They kiss up to the audience and I treat the audience like they're my friend. So if they say something dumb, I'll clown them just like I would any IRL friend. Not because I'm trying to like make them feel bad, but because if you really want to get treated like you're one of my friends, that's part of it. I don't try to hurt somebody at all. But this idea that I have an ego, nobody could ever say that I have an ego based on a couple of tweets and a couple of videos where I confidently state my opinion on Dragon Ball. I'm very confident when it comes to Dragon Ball. Very confident. I don't need to sugarcoat it, bro. If I say this is how it is, for me, it's like this is how it is. I'm not saying I'm always right, but the point is people like I think are kind of intimidated by that, and that's not the intention. But I think, like I said, too many people are just very fake on YouTube. There's a lot of fake people on YouTube, and I can't be fake like that, bro.
Okay.
I just can't.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it, and I think that's something that I think people should appreciate that, to be honest with you, realness, at least I do. Maybe coming from where I come from, I'm pretty sure you do
but
too.
People feel threatened sometimes by it, and it's like, don't be, bro. I want everybody to be like that,
Like, why would you want anybody to lie to you about anything? Because the thing is, I'm gonna say this to everybody, right?
Amen.
The truth comes whether you want it to or not. If someone's truthful to you about something, it at least gives you a heads up of what's coming. If someone lies to you, the truth is still coming. You just won't see it. That's the thing. I would rather see what's coming. But
Right.
I'm the same way, brother. I don't like being lied to. There's a whole, I can tell you that's, I'm not going to go into it now. There is another thing that traumatized me involving being lied to. I hate being lied to, which is why when people call me a liar, I take it so personally. Not anymore, but I mean, it used to drive me up a wall because I don't lie to my audience. I hate lying. And because it's just it's fake, and like we talked about it, I people are weird, bro. I don't think people actually want truth. I think people just want their feelings to get fucked, to get like they want to have their feelings validated more than the truth. And I would rather you tell me the truth, even if it hurts, so I can improve. That's just my opinion.
Well, thank you so
So
much, Danny, for coming on today. You know, we really appreciate having you on as a guest. And
I appreciate it.
as we close out here, just if you can stick around just for a brief moment, as after we end the video. But
Of course.
just speaking to everyone, for those of you guys who this is your first time checking out our channel, just please give us a like, rate, subscribe. As how the YouTubers say. And Danny, I want to give you the floor right now to go ahead and plug your channel or plug any pages that you want to plug right now. So if you want to go ahead and take the floor.
Go ahead, Danny. Pilot the Ava.
Oh wow, there's a reference. Hope it doesn't grow any teeth. That episode, bro, made me feel things too. Geekdom101 is the Dragon Ball channel, over 3,000 Dragon Ball videos. I have a playlist called The Best of Geekdom101 that I putting together stuff that I think are like more important videos. But there's a lot of stuff like informationally there, along with some comedy stuff. But right now there's not really any Dragon Ball news. So I'm not uploading to that channel like consistently because there's no news. So, but I have a huge backlog of videos that are, I think, great for Dragon Ball Z GT, going into the techniques, the transformations, the history of characters, the history of Toriyama. I got a documentary about him on the channel. It's like 30 minutes. I'm uploading on World of Geekdom now, which is random stuff. Whenever I want to say something, I say it on there. Movies, wrestling, TV shows, some video game stuff. It's just a channel that I have to like talk about whatever is not Dragon Ball. Because something I said earlier was that when I first made Geekdom 101, it was going to be Star Wars, Dragon Ball, and Marvel. But what happened was the Dragon Ball content blew up so much bigger that I had to move the Marvel stuff. Plus, the algorithm changed at the time. I had to move the Marvel and Star Wars stuff to a new channel. You know what I'm saying? I had to do that. So, yeah. World of Geekdom.
Make sure you guys, we're going to put all those links down below. So make sure you guys go ahead and check out those channels. If you're not familiar, subscribe to Geekdom 101, World of Geekdom. I follow both channels. They're not pretty good. They're really good. So,
I appreciate that very much. You have no idea.
With that being said, last thing we're going to say, for those of you guys who are familiar, we create manga. So be on the lookout. We have Origami Super Punch, which should now be out and available for you guys to check out. 7 different stories, all different manga creators, original content. Make sure you guys check that out. And the second Super Punch magazine should also be coming out relatively soon too. There will be an announcement when that comes out as well. So please make sure you guys support when that does come out. With that being said, one last time, we want to thank Geekdom for coming on today, and we're going to go ahead and head on out. So, one more thing. 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing our next interview. So be on the lookout for the next guest that's going to be on. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you later.